Nick Durant here with Tattoo University, and today I'm going to show you how to set your tattoo machine to the proper voltage before you start tattooing, and how to check your machine and your needle to make sure everything is working correctly so that you can tattoo correctly. I'm setting up my station for a tattoo. At this point in time, I would usually have my power supply covered. It would be wrapped up. I haven't started tattooing yet, and I need to show you guys how this works. So I don't have this wrapped up yet, so you can see my numbers. I really believe in barrier protection and that everything should be covered, including your tattoo machine. It's a safety issue. It should be followed. Before it goes in the baggie though, you have to make sure that it is running correctly. That way you don't need to tweak on it while it's covered up. Kind of makes your life a little more difficult. So you get everything ready first and then you cover everything up. This is probably an area where a lot of artists make the mistake of just cranking up the voltage and just going to town on somebody and just hammering in a tattoo that's going to bleed a lot and scab up a lot, and it's not going to look good because they don't follow this procedure and set up the machine so that it works, and it works correctly at the right voltage. And you're not just cranking up the voltage because you think that's going to make it work. You're just going to hammer in a tattoo. You're going to adjust the voltage until it is correct and it works for what you're doing and how you are tattooing. And that is a skill that will improve your tattoos 100%. So after I make sure that I don't have too much tension on my rubber bands, the needle is set up correctly, the machine is set up correctly and ready to go, I'm going to start off with a very low voltage. I'm just going to turn it down to the point where I know the machine is barely going to run, and I'm going to step on my foot pedal. Now you can see that my machine is running, but this is what you have to be careful of. The machine is running, but if I put any little resistance against this armature bar nipple, it's going to stop. And then I'm going to slowly turn up my voltage until the machine kicks on. So at 4 volts, the machine kicked on, but you can hear it doesn't have all the power it needs. And if I put my finger right here, I can very easily stop it. So if I stop this and I flick it, it'll start again. Some people call that like a jump start or a flick start. That means your machine doesn't have a whole lot of power there to run. You have to kind of get it going to get it started. What your finger is doing is it is simulating the skin. When you put your finger under the armature bar, you're simulating this needle hitting the skin, and if this armature bar is going to continue to push the needle into the skin or stop. So if I barely put my finger here and it stops the needle, that tells you that the needle, if it hits the skin, is going to stop the armature bar. And it's not going to go into the skin and leave the pigment. It's going to touch the skin and bounce off. It's going to look like you have a tattoo, but that tattoo is going to heal up and fade out because you need enough force for the needle to go into the skin. People have different terminology for the sweet spot, but the term I use for the sweet spot is When you hear your machine click on and you know it's running correctly and it has enough power to run, you can hear it. You can hear it when it clicks over and you know you're good. That's the sweet spot because you know it's good, it's going to work. And you can hear it if you do this. I'm going to turn the machine on and I'm going to slowly turn up my voltage here until I can hear the machine click over and run correctly. Did you hear the change in the sound of the machine? Let me turn it back down and I'm going to turn it back up again. Okay, it's barely kicking on. The first step here. As I turn the voltage up, it's going to kick on. Could even kickstart it here. That's not going to tattoo anybody. It's just the machine is on. Now listen as I turn this up. You can hear it getting a little bit more power. Getting up there. Did you hear that? Turn it back down again. I'm going to do this one more time. This is, you have to listen to your machine. All right. I'm going to stress this point. I'm going to do it one more time. Listen. Don't just listen to the machine. I'm going to put it close so you can hear it. Close your eyes and listen to the machine. Don't even watch the video anymore. Just close your eyes and listen to your machine. Part of tattooing is look, feel, listen. And this is how I know while I'm tattooing also if something is not working correctly. Because if my machine doesn't sound like it should, something's not working correctly. Either I have too much tension on the rubber bands, something's plugging up the tip, something's not quite right if your machine doesn't sound right. So close your eyes and just listen to the machine. Right there where I hear the machine click over and work correctly, I know it will tattoo. But it might still be a little soft on the hit. If I put my finger here, see how it still stops it a little bit? So if I was doing some really light shading, that I might be able to tattoo right there. But if we want to do some solid line work, I'm at 4.7. Let me just turn this up another 0.5 volts. Let's go to 5.5. We'll just start there. So it was running at 4.7, but we turned it up to 5.5. Now, if I put my finger here, it's probably going to hit and it's not going to stop that. So now we know there's enough force. At 4.7, this would probably tattoo, but very lightly. I want to get a lot of penetration with the needle. So we just crank it up just a little bit to make sure that we get the right amount of voltage. And then if you give your machine too much voltage, it heats up. It gets really hot. Your coils heat up. Once your coils heat up, they don't work correctly. So you have to turn it up more because you actually lose some of the magnetism once your coils get hot. But if you leave it down as far as it can go, but it's still going to work correctly, your machine will not heat up. Now, this is the mistake that a lot of you guys make. I can tattoo here. This is the sweet spot. I can tattoo at this voltage. My duty's at 55. My volts are as low as they'll go with this machine and still work. That will give you a nice tattoo that will heal correctly. But what a lot of you do is you get your tattoo machine and you crank this thing up to 8 volts. 8 volts is the magic number because that's what I hear all the time. Everybody, 8 volts, all the time. Now what you've pretty much done is just turned your tattoo machine into a jackhammer. You guys know if you turn it up to 8, this thing's just going to be slamming your finger. No matter what you do, this thing's not going to stop. And you know that will tattoo somebody. But the problem is you are scarring that person up. You are causing too much damage. You are heating up your machine so that you crank it up even more. To make up for the fact that your machine is not tuned correctly, you crank up the voltage. That is not the way to tattoo. You want to tattoo correctly. It's easy to tattoo. It's hard to tattoo correctly. Start off with a small amount of voltage and just turn it up till you hear it work. You get your sweet spot. You just want to be careful. If you want a shade, leave it there. But if you want to do some solid line, let's just be a little more careful. Let's give it another 0.5 volts or maybe 1 volt. But don't crank it up all the way to 8. Or just crank this knob up as far as you can go, because you know that will tattoo somebody, but it's going to hurt. You're going to go too deep. It's not going to look good. Your tattoo is going to look bad, so don't do it.